Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of the Twilight Zone review series. Today, it is the best and worst of Season 2. Yes, that time has come again. I finished reviewing the entire second season, so I thought it would be fun to go through some of the high and low points of the season. And I will just say that I think overall that Season 1 was a bit stronger than Season 2. Season 2 still had a lot of very good episodes, but I don't think there were quite as many all-time great episodes in this season, although a lot were very good, and it was a little bit harder to distinguish what the very best were. As far as really bad episodes, there were about the same number. There were just a lot more middle-of-the-road episodes in Season 2, in my opinion. And I will also say, for those of you interested, that Season 3 reviews will be starting very soon. So, with that being said, I will get right to it. We'll start with the worst episodes first to get those out of the way. So, coming in at number 5 on my list of the worst episodes of the season is The Mind and the Matter. Now, if you watched my review of this episode, I didn't think it was terrible, but the real reason that this episode makes this list is because I thought it was a good concept that went in the wrong direction. This episode is about a man who can use, basically he gets these powers to do what he wants to with his mind, and he makes people disappear. I liked the better concept at the end of the episode, in my opinion, of him making everyone become a version of himself. I thought this could have been a great episode, and for whatever reason, they thought it would be more interesting to have this guy just walk around by himself. So I felt it was an interesting idea that just wasn't presented in the correct way. That being said, the episode's still watchable and not terrible. It's just kind of meh. And the number 4 spot is The Thing About Machines. Now, I kind of defended this episode a little bit in my review, saying that it was somewhat entertaining. It was one of those things that was so bad it was almost good. But it's just really not a very good episode. The concept is ridiculous. How this man thinks all the machines in his house and all machines in general are against him. It's not really that well done. The only reason it doesn't rank even higher on this list is because I do find it to be slightly entertaining, and it's not slow-paced. A few memorable moments, but overall not really an episode I would recommend to anyone. At number 3, The Lateness of the Hour. This episode just flat out boring. I'm sorry if you like it, but it's very boring, and it also kind of, I think, goes in the wrong direction. We're supposed to have a lot of sympathy for our lead character, and it doesn't really work because her part is overdone. She just becomes annoying. The concept of this episode I don't think was particularly interesting, about a man who doesn't want to leave the house and created all these robot servants. And I don't think the twist ending was particularly good either. Of course, she was a robot the whole time. Very predictable and just very bland. Probably the most boring, one of the 2 most boring episodes of Season 2. Just not memorable, really, in any way. At number 2 on my list is an episode that's not boring, called The Man in the Bottle. But this episode is probably the most illogical, ridiculous thing I've ever watched on Twilight Zone. Not only is the acting over the top and not really effective, the concept isn't unique either. A genie gives a couple 3 wishes, which of course they botch. They wish for things that make no sense. This is an episode where our lead character thinks that after he wishes for money, which doesn't work out, instead of just kind of altering that wish slightly, he thinks it's a good idea to wish to become a leader of a country. Not because it would be fun or exciting, but because it's a safe thing to do. Yeah, because, that would be the absolute safest wish you could make. Completely ridiculous. And then we get a twist ending where everything just goes pretty much back to normal and he learns a lesson. Basically, the episode is pointless. It has no point. Don't ever watch this episode unless you want to laugh at how a great show like Twilight Zone could even write and execute an episode this badly. It's just bad in every way. And then we get to number 1, and the reason I took back what I said about Lateness of the Hour being the most boring episode is because I almost forgot about The Whole Truth, which is the worst episode of Season 2. This episode's so bad I had to think back to what it was. And The concept of this episode is awful. Let's have a haunted car that makes people tell the truth. Wow. Pause for a moment and think about that. A haunted car that makes people tell the truth. And the other huge, well, there's two other huge problems with this episode. Number one, it's done in a comic fashion and it's not funny. I know comedy's subjective, but in my opinion, there's nothing funny in this episode at all. Just ridiculous. The acting is mediocre. And then the other big problem with this episode, the first half of the episode just bad, but it's nothing. But the second half of this episode goes into these stereotypical issues and ideas. And I think it's actually borderline offensive. And this contradicts everything that Twilight Zone is usually about, with a few exceptions. One of the goals of Rod Serling and all the creators of this show was to shoot down stereotypes. And yet this episode uses a couple of very unimaginative and unoriginal stereotypes. Like I say, that could kind of border on offensive maybe to some people. I don't know, maybe I took it too serious. This is certainly right up there with Mighty Casey from season 1 as the worst of the first 2 seasons. This episode's awful. The only way I would ever say to watch it is if you're a completionist like I am and you're watching every single episode. This one is really bad. Okay. Now on to the good stuff. Let me get my other list here. Let me just say, this top 5 was really hard to do. There were a lot of episodes that I rated the same on my rating system, so I really had to look hard for. I think the top 2 stand above the rest, but the 3 through 5 spots really could have been any number of different episodes, but I did decide that these 5 were deserving of their places. So I'll start with number 5, which is, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? Now, if you watched my review, I always said this was one of my favorite episodes to watch, and I stand by that. Sure, it's not a very deep episode. It doesn't have a lot of the depth that a lot of the all-time great Twilight Zones have. But in this case, it doesn't matter because this episode is just so entertaining to watch. This is the kind of episode, if it would be on, I could just always sit down and watch it, pretty much no matter what my mood. That's not an easy thing to do in a half-hour TV show from the 60s, in my opinion. And that's why it gets the nod here. Basically, I like the concept too. It's simple, but it works, about trying to figure out who the alien among a group of bus passengers is. And the double twist at the end works really well. The first twist is kind of predictable, but the second one makes up for it and is great. And I never saw it coming for a minute the very first time I ever saw this episode. It's just a unique, fun episode, and it's very memorable. In the number 4 spot is Nick of Time. An extremely well-written and well-acted episode that has an excellent premise about rely on something or someone other than yourself. In this case, it's a fortune-telling little machine at a table, relying on that instead of yourself to create your own successes in the world. This episode is really well done. It really makes you think a lot. I think it's still a relevant concept, too, about you're the person that has to create your own way. You can't rely on other people or other things to do it. It's just an excellent episode all the way around, and it's very low-key. It's got a great message, but it doesn't really push it at you like some other episodes do. And it's got William Shatner in it, so, that's entertaining in itself. At number 3, A Penny for Your Thoughts. Now, this episode does a lot of things very well. It is very thought-provoking, the basic concept of a man being able to read other people's minds, and I really like how at first this seems like a great and amusing power, but as the episode goes on, the guy finds out maybe it's not such a great power to have, to be able to read other minds. It can get you in a lot of trouble, and it can also be misconstrued because what people think isn't always the same thing as how they act. The other thing I really like about this episode is it has a really nice mix of comedy, drama, suspense. There's a little bit of everything. I think it does have maybe one plot line too many, but it's just such a well thought out episode. The lead actor and actress, very likable. It's just a very entertaining episode, and again, still very relevant. brings up a question. Would we really want to know what other people think? I think a lot of people think this would be a great thing on the surface because you could get inside other people's heads and understand what makes them tick, but when you think about it in the long run, probably not such a good idea. But the fact that the episode brings this up and is still relevant makes it a great episode. At number 2, Shadow Play. This was one of the 2 episodes of the season that I thought was really, really great. It's very well written, acted, directed, and edited, in my opinion. But the thing I really like about this episode is that not only is it very thought-provoking about what is reality and what isn't, but it also really feels kind of like a dream. This episode has a very dreamlike quality. The concept, of course, for those who may not know, is that a man basically is sentenced to the same fate over and over again in a court of law, and he's to be executed, and he insists that it's all a dream and that he knows how it's going to play out because it's happened over and over again. The episode brings up a lot of concepts I think were kind of fresh in the 60s and are still interesting now about, is everything really a dream? What is reality? How do dreams work? Things that people are still trying to figure out and discussing today, and the episode really brings that across. And I really like the ending as well, how all the different characters are still in the dream, but they all switch places. People who were prisoners are now judges, and the only thing that really stays the same is our main character. And it's kind of open-ended that way, and I really like that about the episode. Great episode, one of the best in my opinion. But really, number 1, when it came down to it, in my opinion, could only be one thing, and that is Eye of the Beholder. This is definitely considered one of the all-time great episodes of Twilight Zone, and anybody who watches my reviews knows that I don't always go with the episodes considered, the all-time great episodes by the majority. There's times I think, that they're not the best episodes, but in this case, I really think this episode is the best of season 2. And it's just well done all the way around. The concept is just great. It really plays with your perceptions of how, we're trained to normally think. It's compelling and memorable. Basically, the episode's about a woman in a hospital with a bunch of bandages on her face. And she wants to look different. She's getting an operation to look different, which, I'm not going to go into the moral dilemmas of if this is right or wrong or things like that, but it's still a very relevant topic in society, how you look and what it means and how you fit in, because the only reason she wants to get this done is to fit in. And of course, we get the great twist where she looks like, we do, our everyday vision, of what a person looks like. And of course, all the doctors and nurses and the majority of society looks very different from what we would perceive as beauty. So it twists the episode around. Everything's really about perception. And that's still very relevant. I'm a big believer in, a lot of things are perception. And just a very compelling and the way it's shot, how we don't see any of the character faces until the end of the episode. Yet it doesn't really give the episode away. That's just a great job of, directing, editing. The acting is really good too. You stay compelled without seeing the faces. You actually feel the emotion. And I think that was just a tough thing to pull off for its time. And in my opinion, it still holds up today. And the fact that, it's just still such a relevant topic to me, I think this will always be a timeless episode. I don't think, you could say the filmmaking style is dated, but I don't think the concept of the episode has dated. And that is a tribute to the Twilight Zone, and definitely an episode I think that best epitomizes the show. As I've said with some other episodes, this is the reason that people are still interested in the Twilight Zone today. And that's the best compliment I can really give an episode. So that's it. That's my best and worst of Season 2. If you'd like, in the comments, you can give me your best and worst of Season 2 and tell me why I'm right or wrong. I would appreciate that for sure. And like I said, Season 3 reviews will be starting very soon. Just to give a little sneak peek, I am very excited about Season 3. It contains probably 3 of my 5 all-time favorite episodes. And I'll let you guys try and guess what those are. I won't give it away right now. But definitely 3 of my all-time favorites. So I really look forward to that. And as always, thanks for joining me. You can like, comment, subscribe, all those things. And see you soon. Thanks.